There's been another shakeup with the Halo Infinite development. Halo Infinite is a popular title or point of conversation on this channel. I typically announce something, get drugged through the coals, it gets confirmed, then I announce something or leak something or whatever, talk about something, get drugged through the coals, and then here we are again. It's a rich cycle that has continued to repeat itself, and over the weekend I tweeted out that I was hearing about an additional shakeup happening at 343, and when it comes to personal HR issues, I typically I just don't always go down that path, but I knew that this one would eventually come out, and so I kind of got ahead of it and say, hey look, there's going to be more changes, and today those changes have officially come out. Now, the top of the news here is that Chris Lee is leaving 343 or being asked to leave. You can make your own decision about how that is happening, but he is no longer working on Halo Infinite. Now, let's just kind of roll things backwards a little bit here. In the summer, I talked about, the multiplayer and single player being split up, and then the whole game ended up getting delayed, and there was a bunch of turmoil and all around that. And then in mid-August, I wrote up a pretty lengthy dialogue and conversation about some of the turbulent development that I've been hearing for Halo Infinite. Following that, after I wrote that piece, which again was drugged through the coals, and people said that I wasn't accurate, 343 brought Joseph Staten back in and made some changes. This is following my post. And then today, Chris Lee is now out. And so we've had two pretty big senior movements inside of Halo during the development, because at this point, it's very clear and painfully obvious for Microsoft that the delay of Halo Infinite is having some pretty big ramifications on the launch of their next-gen console. Now, there is some leeway here. It's not all doom and gloom, because as we all expect, every single console that Microsoft makes probably until the end of the year is going to sell out almost instantly, and that's just the way console launches go. But not having Infinite there is certainly hurting, because they have a lot of marketing efforts that were aligned to the launch of that title, and having it not happen is kind of a big downer. Now, the thing that Microsoft and 343 are going to have to deal with here is that they're going to have to produce a really solid game, because at this point, they're kind of out in the open. Like they showed off the trailer and it wasn't great, or they showed off the gameplay, it wasn't great, and they're making big changes. We're seeing people and personnel being shifted around inside of 343 to try to get things reorganized, because it sounds like it was a pretty chaotic experience right up until the announcement and showing off, and then effectively the delay. There was a lot of mixed communications going around. I do continue to hear that things are moving forward, but one of the big challenges right now is that we publicly, and I don't even think actually internally, I'm sure they have rough deadlines, but we don't actually know the expected launch date of Halo Infinite. At least with Cyberpunk, granted that title has been delayed multiple times, at least each time they tried to give a title, even if they didn't hit it. And both studios, both titles I should say, Cyberpunk and Infinite, do have a lot working against it. Trying to develop games in an environment where you can't collaborate is pretty darn challenging. And so I don't necessarily fault anybody or in particular at this point, but it's very clear that 343 has some development changes and challenges ahead, and that they are trying to get this back on track. Actually, that is how it was described when Joseph Staten came back in, was quite literally to get Halo Infinite back on track and to get things reorganized. And so here we are with Chris Lee leaving 343. We'll see if he ends up anywhere. According to Bloomberg specifically, they are saying that Bloomberg got a quote, I should say, from Microsoft that says he is still technically a Microsoft employee, but that's kind of up in the air whether or not he's still there, because sometimes when you're asked to leave like that, especially if you've been at a place for a while or you were at a certain level, you kind of just get put on a rider where you're still getting paid for a while, and then eventually you will fully exit the company. I don't know if what his plans are or what Microsoft is going to do. He could end up at another one of the 24-ish studios that Microsoft now has under its belt, but we will see. So just kind of sum things up here, an additional leadership change under Bonnie Ross over at 343 to shake up and more than likely probably streamline some of the development of Halo Infinite, because they have committed to 2021. We don't know when the deadline is, but we know, or when the release date is, but we know that they absolutely have to hit it. They have to release a good game that Halo fans love, because this has been hyped. It has been given a massive budget, and there's a lot of stress now on getting this game out the door. Not that there wasn't stress before, but after you have a kind of a public flailing as they did, and then some turmoil, whatever you want to call it, and leadership shakeup, things are going on, and a good game needs to be the result for the dollars that Microsoft has invested into the studio to make sure that they had a winning title for their next generation console. So that's all we got for now. Just a little bit of shakeup there, and be on the lookout for more changes potentially coming at 343. And as always, I will keep you updated as those things arise.